What's up, everybody? Welcome to SWAT MMA, where we're smoking weed and we're talking mixed martial arts. This is episode number 115. I'm Jared here with Paul.
What up?
Coming to you from Las Vegas, fight capital of the world. Today we're going to be smoking and talking all about UFC 267, plus a look ahead to UFC 268 with its dual championship bouts. We're going to be talking about some BKFC news, as well as take a look at the PFL Championships and more. But first, you know what time it is. Grab your weed, fire it up, and let's dive into the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
Starting to show off with a nice little cone today, Paul. And I gotta let everybody know we actually have the same two kinds of weed we've been smoking on, which is Tropaya Pie, Diamond OG. We've added some Tropicana Cookies wax to the mix in the PAX 3. But we're in the process of revamping this Weed of the Week segment, and we're going to be debuting its new format on our next episode, 116. That's why we haven't focused too much on today's. So whatever you're smoking on, we hope it's as tasty as what we're smoking on. And Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you to decide where we're going to start with this week's combat sports action.
Well, let's get started with what happened over the weekend at UFC 267 over in Abu Dhabi, Fight Island.
It was the rare UFC numbered event that wasn't a pay-per-view.
Yeah, it was an ESPN Plus card.
2 championships, though. Kind of just like the event we have next week, which is a pay-per-view with another 2 championships. So, where do you want to start on that card?
Let's start from the top. And this is one thing that we talked about last week that was a real full circle moment. What I'm talking about is what happened in the main event over the weekend. Glover Teixeira defeats Jan Blachowicz with a second round rear naked choke.
Wins himself the light heavyweight title in the process.
Yep. Second oldest light heavyweight champion in the history of the sport.
And he's the oldest first-time champion, because it was, I believe, Randy Couture won the belt for a second or third time at the age of
45, I think.
Yeah, it might have been 45, 43. But oldest first-time champion ever, and his career comes full circle. It's been 20 years in the making. 7 years since his last title fight, where had it not been for the fact that he ran into John Jones, he might have won it back then.
Yeah, and kind of like what I said before, I kind of want to go back and talk a bit about where Glover, because Glover was, just for the people at home who don't know, Glover is a guy who's been almost like a pioneer of the sport. Like, he has been in the mix and a part of the UFC, whether it's training guys, being a part of like these legendary gyms and legendary training sessions, or being one of the scariest guys in the world and not necessarily being able to get over to the UFC. And now when he ended up coming into the UFC, he had a real interesting beginning, because he was kind of one of those guys everyone was scared to fight coming into the UFC, because he had such a big reputation from overseas fights and all, and like I said before, training with the likes of Chuck Liddell and a lot of these real huge, big light heavyweights that everyone thought were the top of the food chain.
Well, he was Chuck Liddell's main training partner during Chuck Liddell's reign
heyday,
of terror.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was here in the USA, but he wasn't allowed to compete in the USA because of visa issues. So it wasn't that he couldn't get on a plane and get here. He just couldn't legally work here.
Yeah, he can't work.
Fighting his work. And so he's here. He's living in Connecticut. He's training. He's working out with Liddell all the time, but he's just in this limbo for all these years. So if you were a hardcore MMA fan, you knew the name as like this mythical badass motherfucker that was just as good as Chuck, supposedly, when Chuck was king of the hill.
Yeah.
So to see him, it's 2014, he finally gets here. And, like we said earlier, he runs into John Jones, and you think that that's about it for Glover Teixeira. However, here he is 7 years later, winning the title, coming off of a 6-fight win streak.
6 fights in a row.
He just turned 42 before this came in. And this is a man that could have retired. He could have retired after John Jones, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
He's now 33-7. Or I guess he'd be 34-7 right now. And if you look at his, he's got wins to Thiago Santos, Anthony Smith, Nikita Krylov, Ian Kutalaba, Carl Robertson. And he lost to Corey Anderson in July of 2018, which is no shame in losing to Corey, who does have a bit of a claim as the best 205-pounder that's active right now as well.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, he has a win over Jan, then he has a loss, so they're split. But then Jan got beat by Teixeira, who he has a win over.
Yeah.
But irregardless, before he went on this streak, he kind of was alternating losses back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
He got beat by Phil Davis, and he beats Oben St. Preux. He beats Patrick Cummings, Rashad Evans, but then he loses to Anthony Johnson. Beats Jared Cannonier, which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Then he gets KO'd by Gustafsson. Beats Misha Sirkunov, TKO. Nice fight in 2017, but then he loses to Corey Anderson. And you just kind of think that this is going to be it for the guy.
Well, I never necessarily thought it would be it, but I just never thought the whole cycle would get broken. I kind of thought that Glover was one of those guys who never necessarily was over the hill, but I just didn't think contention for a belt was in his future. And obviously, that's where we end up now. But just like from his prior UFC experience, it kind of wasn't that he was a gatekeeper, but he was just kind of one of those guys who was part of the upper echelon, but could never get over the hump.
I mean, he was 22-2 when he comes into the UFC in September 4th of 2013. Or that was when he came in, but that was right before he fought John Jones.
Yeah.
And that's not he wasn't a young fighter then.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that was 10 years ago, so he was 32.
Yeah.
30, 31, right then, about in his peak. I thought that was it. I didn't think he was going to make his way back to title contention again, just due to his age and the fact that John didn't look like he was going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, he did it, though. Saturday night, he walks out of Abu Dhabi, off Fight Island, as the light heavyweight champion of the world.
Did you think he would retire in the cage?
I did. I was kind of confused by his wantingness and willingness to not only want to continue fighting, but to even call out the number one contender and say, "You're next, buddy. Let's do it." Which is your boy Yuri Prochazka, who's coming off a huge win over Dominic Reyes and looks like a scary individual.
I was confused at first too, but then the more I thought about things and I thought about the current situation in the UFC, I get why he's going to keep fighting, because this is his finally, not only did he finally make it to the title, okay, that's great. You accomplished your sporting goals, but what are we watching? We're watching prize fighting, right?
Yeah.
And now he's finally one of the select few people in the UFC that's earned an actual payday, at least in comparison to what you've been getting, not in comparison to boxers and other things who fight for titles, but as to what he's been getting, he's going to get a fat fucking stack now.
That's true.
I haven't seen what he gets paid. He's not some massive draw, let's be honest.
Yeah.
He's not getting no $500,000 a fight, I promise you that. And that's what he will get as a champ.
Yeah.
Plus likely some pay-per-view points. And I figure at his age and the hard work that he's put in, it makes sense now, because this is the UFC. He doesn't have a stack of cash, bro.
Yeah.
That's true. He likely isn't doing that great, like we all think he might be. He's probably not a millionaire living large. I mean, he's just a fucking good prize fighter in the UFC where they don't pay shit.
Yeah.
So I get him suddenly wanting to stick around and at least get one payday. I mean, shit. If he loses the title, I guarantee he retires. I think it's only a payday, and I'm not knocking it. Dude, get your fucking money, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's the only way it made sense to me. Why wouldn't you walk off championship in hand if it's not the fact that the UFC underpays everybody, but at least they pay their champions probably 10 times more than he's getting now.
Yeah, probably, honestly. I
mean, he should be able to clear $1 million for his next championship fight when it's all said and done. And there's no way he's getting more than like $100K, 50 and 50. maybe 100K flat fee. Maybe if he's lucky, 100 and 100.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. It's not a shitting on
It's not
him.
a
That's
knock,
just the
it's-
truth of the
Yeah, it's
UFC.
the pay scale. Yeah.
Oh, but wait, he gets 5 Gs or 20 Gs from Venom. Yeah, I forgot. He got the 20 G Venom fat stack home.
Yeah.
So, I get it.
Yeah. When you put it in from that point of view, I get it. I just mean like legacy-wise. I just feel like there's really nothing left for him to prove.
Legacy-wise, he should have left it in
Yeah.
the cage, put the gloves in, and rode off in the sunset as the shit. Pulled a John Elway.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Go
don't
out on
really get
top.
to do that, or George St. Pierre, to be more exact, for this one. Although the circumstances are different, George retired as champion, but he didn't retire achieving a 20-year goal.
Yeah.
Is the oldest.
And that's the thing too, is one thing that people don't realize is whether it's any sport, whether it's mixed martial arts, boxing, or even football, basketball, and any sport, to end your career on a win is so rare. So I do think it is a missed opportunity. Not necessarily, actually, because he still could retire fucking tomorrow if he wanted to. But I do think if he were to go on and lose the belt and walk away after the loss, I do think he missed an opportunity to have a special moment where he could say goodbye on his terms as the champion of the world. Money is what it is. I don't know the situation, so I don't necessarily know. But I just mean from like a legacy point of view, like that was a big opportunity for him to walk out with zero questions that could be asked about his legacy.
No, for real, I agree. Makes me sad that guys like him at that age. I mean, you're right. We're not privy to his bank account information,
Yeah.
but dude, it's not too much of a stretch looking at the current state of the UFC to figure that he's not well off. I mean,
Well, yeah.
I'm not trying to act like he's some poor man, and it's certainly not due to mismanagement. It's just simply the UFC doesn't pay as much as everybody thinks.
Yeah.
And when you see these paychecks, you think, what? He fights 3 times a year, and even if he gets $100,000, that's $300,000 a year. No, that's $150 before you even start talking about your managers and your gym fees,
Taxes and everything,
and your cost of living. So,
but yeah,
I was really excited to see that, dude. I like a feel-good story in mixed martial arts.
Always,
There's
yeah.
really not that many.
No.
I mean, we can feel good because fighter we liked kicked fighter we don't like's ass, but that's not the same thing as like.
There's not a dry eye in the room when someone
Right.
like Glover
Glover's
achieves.
real respectful.
Yeah.
He's a cool man.
And he's a very respected martial artist outside of who he is, just like what he does in there. He's very respected as well.
He is, and I remember I've always liked Glover. I didn't think I was that big of a fan than I am of any other MMA fighter that's good, except when, I don't remember even what fight it was, but sometime in the past, like 5 years or so, he had a chance to fight at a UFC event in front of Mike Tyson, who was there, and it turns out Glover's a huge Tyson fan and just was ecstatic. He won, and then afterwards he's talking on the mic directly to Tyson, who's sitting cage side, and just talking about how Tyson inspired him and he loved him, and it was his biggest dream to fight in front of him. And probably outside of winning a belt, it was like the most awesomest thing he could have done. And I mean, I'm right there too. I may not be a prize fighter like Glover, but there's not too many Tyson fans bigger than me, and that's been my whole life that I can remember. So I felt connected, as they say. I was like, "Yep, that's my guy. All right, cool." So I like Glover a lot. Hopefully, in his next fight, which is likely against Yuri, he doesn't get his ass kicked really bad.
Yeah,
because that dude's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, that dude's on a beat path towards the belt for sure. So where do you think necessarily Jan Blachowicz goes from here?
I didn't like. Well, I didn't like his post-fight tweet about "I'm not a coward. I'm not going to go anywhere." Dude, who on earth thinks Jan is a coward? You're not a coward because you got beat. I mean, dude, you lose a fight.
I do think he overlooked Glover though.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I do think he did, just because everything that Glover did in there, it seemed like, not that it surprised him, like necessarily like technique-wise or what he was doing, but just like his ability and nonstop pursuit of his game. I feel like it really threw Jan for a loop.
You know, he was accused beforehand of overlooking Glover by John Jones, who was talking the shit afterwards too.
Yeah.
I don't think he's done. I think he could win the title back, actually, because I don't expect Glover's reign to be very long, no disrespect. I mean, the man's 42.
Yeah.
And he's on a 6-fight win streak. Now. They come to a close. Even
What do
if
you
he
think
beats
makes
that
sense for
Yuri
him,
guy,
Legs?
he's going to be looking at probably a rematch with Jan after that. We'll see. He's also big enough to go to heavyweight if he chose.
I think he'd be a tweener. I don't think he's necessarily big enough to be a heavyweight.
He certainly can't go down.
Well, no. I just feel like he's a 205. Like that's the right weight class for
He's
him.
solid. I mean, it could have just been poor preparation on his part, you know.
Yeah.
And the fact that Glover was just better in the cage that night. I mean, look, we both picked Jan to win. I mean, as fans, we wanted Glover to win. But.
And also, if you look at the small things in the fight, it wasn't as much as like Glover being that much better than Jan necessarily. It was just like he wanted it more, and it was like he was willing to do whatever he had to do to get what he wanted. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's kind of where Jan kind of fell off to me. I felt like he never really got going, and like on the ground, Glover's ability to that Muay Thai clinch, that little tie he was doing where he was cranking on his neck. I feel like that, and not only that, but then he's, the little like dirty boxing stuff you can do off the top when someone holds full guard.
Yeah, Glover's very good at dirty boxing. He's got
Yeah.
a nice inside game. And, I mean, he's a long-time vet, obviously. He's been fighting for 20 fucking years.
Mhm.
So he knows all these little tricks he can pull in the cage, too. And you're right. I think that war on Jan, he wasn't expecting it. And then, they were still pretty dry by the time he got that sub.
Quick tap. Real quick tap.
All right, yeah, there's that, too.
Like,
Like, the tap was so quick, I wondered if he had a broken jaw, but then there's been no talk about the broken jaw because
yeah.
Glover hit him clean,
Oh, yeah.
very clean.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Wobbled him. Well, and then he got wobbled back. Remember, it was an exchange where he wobbles Jan, and then it looked like he was going to try to go for the finish. And then Jan started swinging wildly and tagged Glover a bit. So then Glover ends up taking him down and obviously, tapped him out in the end.
but you're right, he tapped really quick. Like, he
Really
sunk
quick.
that choke in for about a second and a half, and Blachowicz was tapping.
Exactly.
Like, people give a lot of shit to Connor for tapping quick, and Connor held on way longer than Jan did.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, right? Am I
Yeah.
right?
It was like instant. It was literally as soon as Glover locked him in.
That's why I thought for sure he had a broken jaw from that punch, and then
Yeah.
he's just had him, and like, you can't take a crank on your fucking broken jaw. I mean, I get that, but I've heard jack shit about a broken jaw. So
Maybe it was just a quick tap in the end.
I don't know. I mean, the striking was pretty even. It was 28-23. Glover had those 2 takedowns, those 2 sub attempts, one which he sunk in. So what about the second title fight? We had this interim bout between
Instant classic.
Petr Yan and Corey Sandhagen. Well, the
Instant
injured
classic.
Aljamain Sterling is out, and yeah, that was a hell of a fight. It was a 5-round decision, and it did not disappoint.
Not at all.
It started off, I thought, with Sandhagen looking pretty good, but that's typical for Jan, who I don't want to say he starts slow.
Yeah.
He's just fights a little more reserved. It's just when he
There's a
figures his
feel-out
opponent
period.
out in rounds 3, 4, and 5, that dude pours it on. He shells up and walks forward and fires bombs, and he's really good at it.
Yeah. What I saw in there was a guy who had a game plan, stuck with it in Corey Sandhagen versus a guy in Petr Yan who more was able to. I think he maybe studied the film more and knew what Corey's biggest Corey does a lot of like high explosive like knees and kicks and wheel kicks and stuff like that. So I think on Petr Yan's side, I think he did a little bit better as far as like studying it rather than coming up with a game plan. Whereas like Corey was like, all right, the way to beat him is to just out strike him in every single round and just like make the numbers so lopsided that whether you're landing or not, you're controlling the fight because you're controlling the pace. You know, when you're talking about a fight where you throw like 400 punches, that's ridiculous.
The thing was, but he only landed like 169 out of those.
But you get what I'm saying, though? Like
He's landing like 30-something%, where you had Jan landing like around 55% for the fight, which plays a part in things.
But I do think that earlier in the fight, it was a lot more few and far between for like the landed significant strikes for Jan. Whereas I feel like as it went along, he started landing more and more and more. In that first round, I know like we both kind of agree it was a feeling out period for Jan.
Yeah,
he
was outstruck. Jan was 37-19 in the first round by Sandhagen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Sandhagen blitzed him in a way to kind of like see how he would react. You know what I mean? Because Sandhagen does that sometimes, and he gets people out of there. You know what I mean? And that's just his game. But I do think Jan's defense and adjustments wore on him as the fight went along.
And I don't see anybody beating Piotr Jan in the bantamweight division right now. As much as I am a fan of Aljamain Sterling, he's going to have to, if he comes back, which is a big question, he's going to really have to show something he didn't show in the first fight to get the decision win if he can't stop him somehow.
Yeah. Which, it's another thing. It's like, outside of his defense and his ability to change it up, freaking dude's got a chin, man.
Dude's got a hell of a chin, and he's got some of the best MMA boxing I've seen.
Yeah.
And he does something so well, which we both said it. He shells up, but he does it effectively. He looks like a boxer in there, the way, he's got his hands up right to his fucking face, but he does it effectively. And it still hurts taking punches there, but he's really good, and he slips punches kind of easily and turns into them.
He catches
and just
a lot
fires back efficiently. I think he beats Aljo in the rematch, and the fight that really interests me would be him and Dillashaw, which if he beats Aljamain, or if Aljamain doesn't come back and they just promote him back to regular champion, that fight has to happen. Like, and if Aljamain's going to be out longer, then that fight has to happen next.
Yeah.
Like, I think for the sake of the division, and for me, it's the lineal title thing. I think it's important that we get this answer because, Sterling beat Sandhagen.
Yeah.
And Dillashaw beat Sandhagen. And now Jan has beat Sandhagen. So Sandhagen's out of this picture here for a good hot minute. But Dillashaw's never lost the title in there. You got the interim champ, who's the former champ, who also didn't beat Dillashaw to win the title. Aljamain over there in fucked up neckland, which I'm not throwing shade when I say I don't know if he comes back. Like, that's a serious injury. I'm dealing with something very similar. Like, my pinky has been numb since fucking April.
Yeah.
Like, I have all kinds of issues with it. Thank God I'm not a fighter trying to punch somebody in the head with my arm right now, or get out of fucking, or grapple, or do all sorts of things.
The squeezing of it's all like your ability to squeeze is not there, and I do think that's huge for Aljo if he is going to fight someone like a TJ or a Jan. That he needs to be 100%.
Absolutely, and he has to be careful the positions that he's put in. I mean, bro, like, I can't sleep on my back. If I sleep on my back for like an hour, I'm going to be fucked up.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, Sterling's dealing with the exact same thing until he's fully healed. He can't, like, takes a lot of risk rolling around on the mat and being in these positions with people cranking on his fucking neck. Like, it's serious. Like, I got to be careful how I sleep. He can't go out there and let somebody twist his neck like a fucking pretzel until he's fully healed. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, so if he comes back, he's going to have his hands full. And whoever fights him next after Dillashaw, like, I think Dillashaw, if he's the same guy that we used to see, wins that fight. But there's so many questions there.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I think the dark horse is Rob Font still.
You don't think Dillashaw in his prime beats Piotr Jan right
now? In his
prime,
maybe.
Like, that's the Dillashaw I'm talking about. He left in his prime.
He did leave in his prime, but I do think that because of what happened during his suspension, he had 2 shoulder surgeries. He just had a knee surgery after his last fight with Corey. So it's like all these surgeries at age, 33, 34, they start to catch up.
That they do. So that is the question though that needs to be answered because it probably has caught up with him, to be honest. But until we see it in the cage, we don't know.
Exactly. Well, let's move on to the Islam Makhachev fight with Dan Hooker. Not really much to talk about here. It was very one-sided. Islam pretty much went out there, took Hooker down, put him in a Kimura, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Hooker landed 4 strikes. You know, it was 2 minutes, 25 seconds of round 1. I mean, look, kudos to Islam Makhachev. He went out and made short work of a tough guy.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you say?
But it's kind of a tailored matchup for him.
Yeah,
It's a matchup where,
it's a
like,
short notice matchup against a tall, rangy striker who has suspect wrestling defense. Right? I mean,
it's literally what it was.
So your boy Daniel Cormier could not stop gushing about Islam Makhachev, just like he does any Dagestani or Chechen fighter. I don't know if it's his ties to AKA and Khabib.
Anybody who Khabib brings to AKA.
But, like, Justin Gaethje took some offense to that. And I don't get it as, like, a listener on the show. I mean, listening to the UFC show, I'm like, really, commentator?
Yeah.
Commentator with gym ties to this guy? Okay, but he was saying that he should skip over next week's big lightweight fight winner and get an immediate title shot. Skipping Dustin Poirier, I guess this would be after the Poirier fight.
Yeah.
But skipping the winner of Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler, which I think get the fuck out of here, dude. Yeah. Then, Cormier tries to walk that back a little bit because Gaethje was like, keep sucking, DC.
Yeah.
And then DC, did you see his response? DC replies back on Twitter, I can't fight you, but Islam Makhachev can. And then Justin says something back like, you're the one fucking putting my name out there.
Yeah.
Talking about the fight. And then DC tries to walk it back and be like, you're my favorite fighter, champ. Like, no, he's not.
He's not.
I can say that 100% confidence. Do you have any indication that Justin Gaethje is Daniel Cormier's favorite fucking fighter, especially in the lightweight division?
Yeah, no. No way.
Not even close. So, yeah, but... So, Makhachev, I don't think you deserve a title shot, dude, but you should definitely fight one of these top dogs next.
I think him and Beneil Dariush makes a lot of sense next.
Hell, I think him versus the loser of next week's big fight is the fight.
Yeah.
And if he wins that, give him a fucking title shot.
Yeah.
Dariush could be the second prize after that, like if he can't get that fight.
Makes sense.
I mean, that's what I think Cormier should be out there saying, is he should get the fucking loser of this fight. Because that's still the next guy at the top.
Yeah. There's a queue. You don't just get to hop the queue over. I mean,
you have a cool victory, yay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
Celebrate it.
And one thing they kept
jump
saying
over the rest of the fucking division.
Well, not only that, but during the broadcast, they're going, "Oh well, the last person to defeat Dan Hooker got a title shot, and that was Michael Chandler." But there's
he's lost since then. Dan Hooker isn't as high value as he was pre-Michael Chandler, who knocked him out in the first round.
Yeah, I think it was like 30.
Do people not take that into account? I mean,
They don't.
Sorry, Dan Hooker's fucking value as championship level contender dropped significantly after that shit.
Yeah.
People are just silly sometimes.
All right. And then kind of round out the recap, we had Khamzat Chimaev completely dominate Li Jiliang.
That was something. Look, no fighter's ever done that to Li Jiliang before.
Just shut him out, literally.
I mean, he walked across. I mean, the bell fucking rang. He walked across the cage, ate a punch or two, picked this motherfucker up,
Ragdoll,
and just carried him over to the fence, talking shit to Dana White.
Yeah.
Slammed him down, beat on his goddamn head.
That's exactly what happened.
I mean, I didn't think too much of it when he did that to Reyes, whatever, and even Mearshart, because those guys are like, they're not the cream of the crop. But Li Jiliang is a very durable fighter, and nobody's ever done that to him before. Yeah,
well, I mean, he's ranked 11th in the division going in, so he has like some merit. You know what I mean? And to go in there and do that to a guy like that is just fucking nuts.
It's Pretty impressive, man.
Very impressive. I don't know about title shot next impressive,
Well,
but
no.
because like people are saying that, and I'm just like,
That's
no,
ridiculous.
no,
But
no
he
way.
deserves a big fight, I would
Yeah,
say.
I think him and Vicente Luque makes a lot of sense.
Magny's asking for him on December 18, but
That's cool. That's cool too.
Magny's pretty solid.
Yeah. I don't know though.
I don't know.
Magny, I kind of feel like is on the same level as like Li Juliang though, where he's like, not that he's not great. He's just, I think he's a part of the division. I don't think he's running it. You know what I mean?
It was something to see, though. I mean, the only thing that I find annoying is this talk, and I don't know, maybe it's just for clicks, or I don't know, but this thing where like they talk about how everybody's scared of him now, like he's so scary. Usman's scared, and like, dude, this is professional fighting. Literally, nobody is scared of any other fighter.
Yeah.
Like, you can say a lot of things. You can say like they're impressed.
Yeah.
You can say they're like, wow, oh my god. But I get tired of this. So and so's scared, or somebody's
Yeah.
scared. Like,
Doesn't
no,
make
they're
any
not.
sense.
They're not scared of anybody on earth.
That's what they do. What they do. I mean, that's why
Like,
they do it.
like, do you think one football team is scared of the other football team on fucking Sunday?
Mm-mm.
Do you think a tennis player is like scared of the other tennis? Like, it's fucking stupid, and I fucking hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And Bizbang was just hyping that shit up on his fucking YouTube channel.
Yeah.
He's so scary. Everybody's scared. I'm like, stop. Like, he's impressive. Dude's impressive as fuck. I heard him calling out Masvidal and Nate Diaz. I don't want to see either of those fights. Please don't have him fight Nate Diaz. Jesus. I mean, I'm sorry. He'd probably do something similar.
You think so?
Nate's known weaknesses are takedowns and wrestlers. This dude's wrestling looks unstoppable at this point.
Yeah.
It could be different if I'd seen somebody stuff a fucking takedown. But, I mean, the guy has, like, more finishes than he has, like, strikes landed on him at this
He's
point.
like 256 to 2.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous. And he's got 4 finishes, and, yeah, he's been hit twice. Like,
Jesus.
at some point, you got to be like, okay. Well. So with that, let's talk about the PFL Championships that went down.
Mm-hmm.
Most notably, we had Kayla Harrison making pretty short work of her opponent to win her second championship.
In a row.
Not much of a surprise there. I mean, let's be honest. Taylor Gradado is a promising young fighter. She was 3-1 going into this, fighting who, in my opinion, outside of Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko, is the number 3 best pound-for-pound female fighter on the planet. I think she's better than Cyborg right now, and in time, she might come to rival the top 2.
Yeah.
Who occupy a pretty close spot in number 1 rankings.
Yeah.
Amanda's just slightly edged above Valentina due to those 2 fights, but that's not what we're talking about here. So, what were your thoughts about that outside of?
That was just a classic
what I just said?
Kayla Harrison performance. She just went out and dominated, did everything she wanted to do in there, got out of there with $1 million.
She's got some nasty ground and pound.
Yeah.
I mean, and she has the heaviest judo throws that we've seen since Ronda Rousey.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously.
Her hips, her ability to use her hips is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, that power that's generated right there. I mean, it's easy for a lot of people to, poke fun at Ronda, especially the way she went out with her striking on display. But people forget that she was a bad motherfucker, too. Like, she did go out weak and with poor striking. So when you say something like, we haven't seen that since Ronda, that means something.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anybody that can deal with that. And she's so strong that when she gets on top and starts raining down those punches,
not many people can take them.
And I don't think Cyborg can stop her. And I don't think she's going to fight Amanda. I don't think she'll go to the UFC until Amanda retires. And Shevchenko and her will never meet because the size difference is too great,
yeah,
so.
it's too out of whack.
Yeah.
Yeah, just another dominant performance for her. And then,
well, what do you think is next for her? I mean, we can't talk about what's next for Taylor. I mean, she's 3-1 now. She's 3-2. She's got a long career ahead of her probably, but
Honestly,
it'll take a while.
I think she re-signs with the PFL and does it one more time.
I think that that's a possibility. I think that the second possibility is that she goes to Scott Coker and Bellator.
Yeah.
I don't think there's. I think the chances she goes to the UFC are slim to none at this point.
Think so?
Yep. I think Bellator is definitely of a, and I know I'm in the minority saying this. Most people are like UFC. Mm-hmm. I don't see that happening at all.
You just don't think they'll offer her something as lucrative as Bellator?
No, and I think that she is young enough in her career. She's in no real rush to get to the UFC. She's going in as a champ. Like, it's not like she has to earn too much of a way to a title shot. I know the PFL is the minor leagues, but she has a lot behind her. And I think she goes to Bellator, somehow, decides on a weight over there that she can make, because she has to cut a little bit more. I mean, they don't have a 55. Like, we're talking about her going to 45 here. So I know she had that fight in Invicta where she did make that weight. So she's done it before.
Yeah. I could see that happening as well.
I'm seeing Bellator all the way. Bellator or what you said, PFL, which I think it's probably a toss-up. Bellator can't offer her money, but they can offer her sponsorship deals.
Sponsorships and notoriety. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, look what Ronda did with a gold medal in judo and a championship belt around her waist. Well, she was on the cover of fucking Sports Illustrated, man.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. I mean, there's also AEW. She's been making a lot of appearances.
What is AEW?
It's like a.
Was that the wrestling?
Yeah.
That's right. It's funny you said AEW, and I thought you said A&W, and I was like,
root beer place?
Is that like a sponsor, or are they on Kayla Train? Or am I missing? So like DC and fried chicken, we got Kayla and some A&W. But yeah.
But now a bunch of the guys from down at American Top Team have been making appearances on the show. So
I actually did see something about that. I just didn't know that was the promotion. I heard that Junior Dos Santos is fucking with some wrestling, and Dan Lambert himself, the owner, has been
a little heel
showing up there.
Yeah.
Is he in like the managerial role?
Mm-hmm. Like, go get him type.
Yeah, you can do that with it. That's fun. I jest, but that's fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
and there's serious money that can be offered in that.
So I've heard.
Like, it would be more of a money move than legacy move, obviously. But if she already feels like she has nothing else to prove, then why not? Fuck it.
We saw another repeat champion, which was Ray Cooper III, defeating Mago Makiranov, if I said that right, which was a rematch as well.
Yeah.
A great fight. I mean, that was a real back-and-forth contest. Magomed is a very tough fighter, and he winds up getting a KO at 3:02 with the third round. A beautiful, just slip and dip right hand. Knocked him just right down on the ground, a little bit of ground and pound, and it was over. The ground and pound was unnecessary. And Ray Cooper makes a statement here in the 170-pound weight class. And what's next for him as well is he's got back-to-back championships now, am I right?
I think he's 1-1.
He's 1-1. Well, he's got back-to-back appearances, but he's definitely got a fat check.
Oh, yeah.
But even after the aforementioned tax man and after his gym fees and his manager shit, when you're raking in a mill, you're still going to be wound up with something afterwards that's significant enough to maybe go ahead and go to the UFC if he wants to test himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where it all just really depends on how he. What do you feel like? Like, thinking about where his skill level is and where he's at in his career, do you think that he would be someone who could come into the UFC and make a splash?
Well, Paul, this highlights in my mind the major difference between these sports like boxing and mixed martial arts and mainstream sports like the NBA and the NFL. Because when you go join a team in either one of those, like we know what the Denver Broncos' goals are this year, however far away from them they're actually reaching. You know, they have no chance, but we know every team's goal. You need to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You want to make the Pro Bowl. You know, at least maybe that doesn't have as much weight as it used to because now it's more of a popularity thing. But you know, back in the day, that used to be more of a player vote thing, which was a badge of honor. In the UFC or in mixed martial arts, it might not be to win a championship because you're a fucking prize fighter.
Yeah.
I mean,
Whatever
you're
the
winning.
most money's at.
You're fighting for money. And that's just a different thing. Yes, these other guys get a paycheck, but that's not the main goal. Like the main goal, so it depends on what these guys get into the sport for. Do you get into the sport because you want to prove to the world that you can win the gold? Or do you get in the sport because you want to get the fattest fucking paychecks you can to feed your family?
Yeah.
Sometimes that does go hand in hand with winning the gold, but not always.
Not always, yeah. Not at all. And that's kind of what we've been talking about before with the whole UFC is like there's definitely some risk involved, you know?
Yeah, I think Ray Cooper III has a way bigger chance, odds-wise, of making $1 million by re-signing with the PFL, $1 million plus, because he does. It's not like that's all the money he gets all season long.
Yeah.
Than he does making the same amount of money going to the fucking UFC.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. Well, let's talk about another fight on the card as well. We had Clarissa Shields ends up taking her first loss of her MMA career by split decision over Abigail Montez. And I really think this was one of those situations where, you know, people say sometimes in life it's not about wins and losses, it's winning and learning. You know what I mean? And I feel like this was a real good learning moment for Clarissa. She didn't get blown out of the water. She didn't look like she didn't belong there. She looked like someone who has like that's on the right track, but just isn't necessarily polished yet. And that's okay. It's her second fight in her MMA career. I think she did well.
I thought she did pretty well too. Sometimes people get confused and they think that the same standards that apply in boxing apply to mixed martial arts. This is a common mistake of casual fans. Whereas if she was a young boxer, she'd be in some trouble. I mean, in boxing, you just can't take too many L's and be considered elite. And sometimes even one is enough to fuck you up.
Yeah.
But MMA is different. 1-1 doesn't hurt her at all.
No.
The loss is beneficial.
Learning experience.
They could, be feeding her absolute jokes that she's just beating up on the feet and never getting tested with the wrestlers. And instead, she got tested in her first fight, and she came through it. And in this fight, there was a lot more striking, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I just feel like we're watching her evolve her game in front of our eyes, and I just feel like every time we see her, there's just gonna be a whole like different little piece that comes out every time she fights.
Yeah, this isn't the end of the Clarissa Shields experiment or journey or whatever you want to call it here in mixed martial arts.
Yeah,
and it doesn't mean that she sucks either.
No,
and these people like Jake Paul's clown ass that are saying she's exposed as a fake. I mean, I get it. He's trolling.
He's trolling, and like they have the history. There's
but,
no way anybody.
She's
could
not
do
fake
that
anything. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He says the same shit about Conor, one of the most decorated champions of the sports scene, whether or not you fucking like his ass.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's
shit talk at the end of the day.
It's ridiculous. And maybe decorated is maybe I was a little hyperbole there on Conor, but I mean he was the first dual weight champ, which is now is pretty more commonplace compared to before. But either way, Clarissa's fine. She'll do better in her next fight. And you know what? If she doesn't and she loses again, well, then a different conversation starts to be had. But for now,
and honestly,
it is what it is.
Well, even if we do have to have that conversation, that's fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's doing something that hundreds of other guys said they'll do, but never actually will. I'll fight an MMA fighter, but then I'll step into the octagon and fight them MMA fight after.
Yeah, none of these boxers ever have the balls to do that.
Clarissa is the one who's putting the work in and doing what she's got to do to be the best.
Even Jake Paul's dumbass, he doesn't have the balls to do that either. He wouldn't even have the balls to fight a real boxer, let alone go into an MMA gym. Floyd, about the best boxer you can get on the planet, he don't want none of that smoke. Okay, none of them do. So I really respect Clarissa for doing shit that's way outside her comfort zone so many people seem to have such a hard time grasping that they're completely different sports just because they look slightly similar. And what
No.
you're doing is a little
Everything
bit
is
similar.
different.
Like
Like,
it's not
literally
the same.
everything.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
Like golf and hockey are pretty similar when you look at what you're doing. You're just hitting you're hitting a ball, similar shaped object with a fucking stick on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Not similar. So, long wait till the next PFL, and a lot of these questions will be answered by that time.
Well, some breaking news from this week. We had an unfamiliar, pretty big signing for the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. We had Mike Perry, former UFC fighter, is heading over there to try it out.
I'm excited by that. Mike Perry he's an MMA fighter in his prime who's used to have a good stand-up before he went kind of wayward in mixed martial arts.
He's got hands.
He's got hands, and he's got a chin and a half.
Yeah.
So I'm excited by this signing for BKFC. I'm more excited by this than even the Chad Mendes signing that they fucking announced.
Yeah, because I like you said, I do think that Mike is still in his prime, whereas Chad's a little bit over there.
And this kind of ties into something we were just talking about before, earlier with Glover. But people were asking Mike, why would you do this? Because some people seem to have a hard time grasping why he would leave a established elite organization to go with kind of an upstart still in a sport that's young. And he said exactly what we were talking about earlier. He said, I'm a prize fighter. I fight for money. That's a literal quote as to why he's doing it. Mm-hmm. And we do know that the BKFC seems to be paying somewhat decently here.
Yeah.
Compared, at least on what their fighters, their big signees are saying. Like, you have Paige Van Zandt publicly saying it's the most money she's ever got for fights.
Yeah.
I don't think that she would come out and falsify that type of thing. I think it's more likely that she's just keeping it real, and that's why she signed. And when guys like Mike Perry, who could go to Bellator, he could go to PFL.
Could have re-signed with the UFC.
Re-signed with the UFC, even on a losing streak. He's the type of fighter that Dana likes. And I would say that means he has to be guaranteed to be getting more money than he was currently getting in his UFC contract. Am I right?
Yeah. That would just make all the sense in the world at this point.
And I think he's somewhere in the neighborhood of 50-50 to 90-90. 90K to win show, 50 to win show.
Makes sense. But yeah, I like it.
They're talking about him versus Diego Sanchez as a possible. I don't like that fight because they did sign him as well.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they signed Diego.
I thought it was like pending medicals or something.
He passed.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there we are.
So that could be a possibility, but I mean, if he's going to be fighting at 175, we've already got an established BKFC champion there that he should know a little bit about. I mean, we've got Thiago Alves. And he could also go down to 165, I would think.
Make a lot of sense.
I actually would like him better at 65 than at 75.
Yeah, me too. I think that's his natural weight class.
It is in a no champion division right now. They do have, Connor Tierney, who is the reigning 165-pound champion, in BKB, which is the most recognizable organization, I would say, at least internationally.
Yeah.
BKFC is on the come up here, and he did sign with BKFC, but we're still waiting for his fight to be announced. So I like him. 165 is what I'm hoping for. We do have the BKFC New York City card coming up this weekend as well, Paul, headlined by Joey Beltran, heavyweight champ, versus Arnold Adams, who is an experienced fighter, 5-1, 4 KOs. I expect a lot of action.
Yeah.
Exciting fights. I'd like to say more about Arnold. I don't know more. It's hard to find some information on these guys.
Yeah, well, I know Joey Beltran always comes to bring it, so anytime he's on, I'm watching.
And look, you're talking about his opponent having 6 fights in bare knuckle that might not sound like a lot. Like in MMA or boxing, these are rookies. In bare knuckle, that's a lot of experience, actually.
Yeah.
And when you're watching fighters evolve in this sport, which you can watch in real time, you can see the people who have that level of fights and more. You can see it in
Yeah.
how they move in the cage or in the ring, and how they approach the fights. I think that will wrap up the BKFC news. We'll talk next week about the winner and what's next on their agenda, as they've been rolling out a lot of events back to back here lately. I'm really ending the year strong. So that leaves us with the upcoming UFC 268 pay-per-view, 2 championship fights at the top.
2 rematches.
2 rematches as well. We've got the 170-pound strap, Champ Usman rematching Colby Covington.
Yep.
And we've got the women's 115-pound with Rose Namajunas rematching Weili Zhang. A fight I don't like, but whatever. We're here with it. I don't think she deserved an instant rematch. Nobody's listening to me when I call up Dana in the UFC and tell them the fights to make. No one's fucking listening.
No one's listening anymore.
So what can I do?
Well, before we get into the 2 title fights, I think we should go ahead and start in the prelims. And one of my favorite fights, I think, is going to be a real big fight on this card. We got Ally Quinta taking on Bobby Green. 2 guys who are just dogs in there, who are just 2 game motherfuckers who are going to go in there and battle it out. You know what I mean? Neither guy will take a back step, and it will be, I think it's going to end up being fight of the night.
Bobby Green comes to brawl. Ally Quinta, when he's not selling real estate, is a mean motherfucker. Well, it's true. He is. They're both getting up there a little bit. We got Al's 34 now. Bobby's 35. And Al's been a little inactive of late.
Yeah.
And I respect that, because he actually, I'm joking, but he's not just a real estate agent. Like, he's making money.
Yeah.
He's successful at it. And it should tell you something, that a guy can make more money selling houses than he can being an elite fighter in the top organization on the planet. But we've talked about things like that ad nauseum. Yeah. Who do you like to win this fight?
I was just going to say the same to you. I think Al gets it done.
I think he does too. Green's on a little bit of a downswing here. And Al, he's 14-6. He is coming off back-to-back losses here, but we haven't seen him since fucking October 6th of 2019. Okay, so it's 2 years. And he fights out of Sierra Longo in New York. He's in there with Matt Serra, Roy Longo, Aljamain Sterling. Although Sterling did move here to Vegas, he still trains with them part-time. I like Al. I like him actually with a TKO round 3. I'll get a little specific there.
Okay.
But I think that could very well be fight of the night, sir. Yes.
Yeah. I'm taking Al as well. So now going up the card a little bit more, let's talk about your boy Frankie Edgar, Mr. No Easy Fights on Planet Earth, taking on Marlon Vera.
This is a good fight for Marlon Vera. It's a no-win situation for Frankie Edgar. He beats Marlon Vera. They're like, yeah,
you should beat Gio Vera. Don't matter.
Right. If Vera wins, or if he loses, they're like, bye.
Yeah. And I do think it could come to that, because that would be what, 4 in a row losses, or 3 in a row.
It would be, if you're counting. He's got the Korean Zombie loss.
Korean Zombie, and then he lost to.
Well, he lost to Brian Ortega.
Yeah, that
he got KO'd. I don't really know why at 40 years old Frankie's taking this fight.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to me either.
Cheetah's real tough, man. He's hugely underrated. He's nasty.
He deserves this fight, but I don't know if it's a good fight.
Marlon Vera?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I just don't think it's a good one for Frank.
This is what Vera needs to put a stamp on himself and get himself talked about a lot more into that top 10 picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
The win over Frankie still carries weight, despite the streak that Frankie's been on.
Well, and here's the thing: is Frankie's a fucking legend. Like the knockouts it was a Sandhagen who knocked him out last. That was pretty scary, but like you can never count Frank Edgar out. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys who's literally come back and had these weird streaks where he has losses and wins and losses and wins, but then out of nowhere he'll string 3 together and you're like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
I mean, he lost. He fought for the title against Max, and he lost. And then he had that crazy TKO to Chang Sung-jung, the Korean Zombie, which was just. And then he did a win. He beat Pedro Munoz in a good fight.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that.
And then he lost that crazy KO to Corey Sandhagen.
It's a get right fight.
And that's what fucking Corey. I mean, he made his stamp as elite off of that, and coming back after the Sterling loss.
Yeah.
But you're right. I guess that's what it is for Frankie. If he's still trying to be in contention, this is a get right fight for him. Because Prime Frankie destroys Marlon Vera, but this ain't Prime Frankie. This is 40-year-old Frankie at a weight class way low.
I think Cheeto pulls it off.
I think Cheeto gets him too, and I think Frankie might need to take a hard look at retirement after that.
Yeah, I'm taking Cheeto by unanimous decision.
The fight that I want to talk about, though, that really for me is significantly more exciting, probably my favorite fight on the card, is going to be the lightweight showdown between a returning Justin Gaethje and your boy Michael Chandler.
Oh, he's my boy. Good, because I fuck with him.
Yeah, I fuck with them both, actually.
This could be a fucking war, because we have seen both these guys in knockout, drag-it-out wars, and I would not be surprised if this is one of them as well.
Look, Gaethje, we haven't seen him since the loss to Nurmagomedov, and I'm not going to hold that loss against him.
Shit happens.
Everybody loses. Everybody gets dragged down to the ground and subbed by Nurmagomedov. That's its greatness. Kudos. He's gone. That shit don't count no more.
Huge fight for both these guys.
Do you think Chandler's going to utilize his wrestling to an advantage here, and can he? Because
I do think he can. I just don't necessarily know if he will. Because he's another guy who believes in his hands. He has good hands, and so when it comes down to it, I think it's gonna be a kind of a feeling out period, possibly in the first round, and I do think that I don't know if he'll necessarily try to take him down and hold him there, but I do think if the rounds get close, Chandler will try to use his wrestling to get the edge over Gaethje on the scorecards.
you think he can get in there and get Gaethje down?
I mean,
Yeah, Nurmagomedov did it again. That doesn't count.
yeah, Gaethje's pretty hard to take down.
I mean, Gaethje's the guy with the mythic wrestling that we never see but always hear about.
No one fucking ever seen it though.
Like, does he practice it in the gym? Is he on point still?
Well, you got to think about it. He's literally rolling with your boy Kamaru every day. That's his main training partner.
So I would have to say, yeah, then.
Yeah. But then again, who was Michael Chandler's main training partner fucking 6 months ago? Also Kamaru Usman.
I was unaware of that.
Yeah. When Kamaru Usman was at Henry Hoof's, him and Michael Chandler were head training partners, and they were the ones who would. Michael Chandler is also a really, really ridiculous wrestler, 3-time All-American in freaking Missouri. So he knows what the fuck he's doing in there.
And we've seen his in-cage wrestling game plenty of times where we've never seen Gaethje's.
Zero. We've seen zero.
So I think if Chandler is smart, he's going to utilize that. I mean, look, Gaethje strikes, he's at 7.46 significant strikes landed per minute, which is really high. But Chandler's not that far behind at around 4.5. And both of these guys are highly accurate.
And both have hell of a chin, too.
Hell of a chin. They both 50 to 60% accuracy in their striking. So they're not throwing wild, kind of like Dan Hooker was.
Yeah. That's what got him in trouble.
But then here we run into a big difference is where we've got, when you look at the stats and you've got strikes absorbed per minute, you've got Gaethje at basically 8. Okay, and you've got Chandler at around just under 4. Half as many.
Yeah.
Chandler hits hard.
Hard as fuck. Both these guys hit like a truck.
And then when you look at the stats again, sticking with this theme, the takedown accuracy, you've got 0% for Gaethje. And, you're looking at 41% for Chandler. Takedown defense, 70 is about even. And Chandler's averaging a sub per 15 minutes. So on paper, you got to give the edge to Chandler.
Yeah. Well, who do you got?
I'm picking Gaethje.
I feel that. I think Chandler gets it done.
I think Gaethje's fucking hungry, and I think he's mad. And Gaethje goes to war when he's mad.
Yeah, but that's a good and a bad thing we're talking about Justin Gaethje. Because there's going to war, and there's going to war like he did with Poirier, where it was just, to the wind, balls to the wall, fucking do whatever you got to do, and if you get knocked out, it happens. And that's how he fought before. But since then, will he still be that controlled chaos that he was against like Tony Ferguson? Does he still have that? Is that something that's going to always be a part of his game, or is that something that he just took out in the Ferguson fight? So I'm really looking forward to this one though.
It's my favorite fight on the card.
The people's main event.
It is really, and that's only because the other two are rematches. Not that they're shitty fights. We've seen them before, so we kind of some of the luster's kind of gone.
Yeah. Even the co-main event. Well, let's just talk about it. So the co-main event, we got Rose Namajunas taking on Zhongweli, second time. I don't even know what to say about this fight with a literally one kick knockout. Like what's there to really say after that? Like
I don't understand why this fight was made. I'm not trying to throw shade at Weili, but she was not a dominant champion. She didn't hold the belt for long. It was not a close fight.
Yep. You got people like Carla Esparza with 5 wins in a row. Or
and you've got fights that make more sense in the wings. But we're here now. Yeah. So, look, when Rose Namajunas, who is one of my favorite fighters on earth, when she's dialed in, she's dangerous as fuck. And if she remains dialed in, I expect something similar here. Maybe not a flash KO, but I expect another victory. Not flash. I don't like that term. But not a knockout. But I expect another victory here by Rose. I think she's going to be on point and win this fight by any means necessary.
Well, I really feel like the differences in these two fighters is I think Weili probably has a little bit more like will and a little bit more like presence as far as like physicality in the octagon, where I feel like Rose is a lot more technical.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
Weili's strong. She's like a little bull. She's muscular.
She controls the octagon very well.
But,
but I think Rose is
Rose worked that kick. Like that wasn't like
it wasn't some fluke.
Like no, it wasn't some fluke. Like if I remember correctly, she did some like a low kick, and then like faked and then went high and caught her with it. Like she got her to drop her guard and then threw that kick, knowing her guard was going to be dropped.
Yeah,
like that's not like you're winging like flash KO to me. I think somebody winging wild shots where one just gets lucky and lands in some tough man like exchange of little skill.
Yeah,
like otherwise motherfuckers know what they're doing. It's not a lucky flash KO. But anyways, I think Rose gets the victory. I want Rose to get the victory. I think she's a great champion, a great role model, and I'd like to
kick-ass fighter.
Yeah, just fucking close this book and get back on the fucking on the.
I tend to agree.
Reign.
I tend to agree on that one as well. I think Rose gets it the second time in a row, and we'll see who's next after that. So, the main event. This is, 2 years in the making now?
Yeah, this is my second favorite fight on the I'm pretty stoked about this fight, too.
So we got Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman, number 2. And let me just start this off by kind of just laying the landscape of what's happened since their last fight. So their first fight happens, and then it kind of ended in some sort of controversy, but nothing like big enough to really be like a cliffhanger. You know what I mean?
It was something to talk about, but nothing to be outraged about.
Exactly, yeah.
Right?
So we had a very, very close fight through 4 rounds. The 5th round, Kamaru ends up winning by TKO in a fight that was like in its last 30 seconds and maybe didn't need to be stopped there. And looking at the judges' scorecards would have been interesting. But in the end, Kamaru gets the TKO victory. But since then, there's been a whole lot of drama in and out of both camps. So first you have Kamaru, who ends up fighting his own training partner in Gilbert Burns, which forces him out of Henry Hoof's gym, forces him to go start working with Trevor Whitman and Justin Gaethje, who those two are now training partners. And that has kind of changed how Kamaru Usman fights, honestly. I think in the Masvidal fight especially, we saw like a whole different striking coming from Kamaru Usman. He's
The
so much
second-
more.
You know,
Yeah,
the second Masvidal
yeah,
fight,
second Masvidal fight.
because he beat Covington and then immediately he fought Masvidal, made short work.
Yeah, it was just a
You know.
wrestle. He wrestled him
Yeah,
for
and
5
then he
rounds.
got the Burns fight, which you just talked about, and then he fought Masvidal again, and his striking looked just like you were saying.
Starched him. And as before, like I just felt like when we watched Kamaru Usman strike, there was really no dexterity in a lot of his like kicks, and there was like a lot of it was real robotic. It was a lot of not bad striking, but striking that set up his wrestling. And now I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like his striking is what he's setting up now, and he uses fakes and stuff like that to set traps for people and hit him with big shots. And that's exactly what he did to Masvidal. Masvidal was expecting some kind of takedown or some kind of clinch, and drops his guard, and Kamaru knocks his head off. You know what I mean? And so now on Colby's side, since that Colby fight, Masvidal is kind of part of this as well. Him and Masvidal getting a couple gym spats. Him and Poirier getting a couple gym spats. And Dan Lambert kind of has to make a decision where I can't have you doing this in my gym anymore. And they kind of have a falling out. And now Colby is kind of doing his own thing where he has guys that he trusts and he has brought in, and the camp's built around him. But in that same breath, like Kamaru, I think we've seen some evolution from Colby in his last couple fights as well. Since
he's only
since his
fought
last
Woodley
fight.
since then,
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying. Like it was like a long layoff before he fought Woodley, and when he fought Woodley, I felt like it was it was the same formula that he always goes for, but I feel like it came to him a lot more crisp in the same way as like Usman. Like I feel like both these guys are evolving already. They're at the top of the mountain, but they're not done evolving, is what I'm saying. Like both of them have been wrestlers their whole life and had the grappling game, but their questions had always been in the striking. But yet in their last few fights, both these guys are finishing guys on the feet. And then in Colby's case, just literally beat the life out of Woodley. Like just beat the fuck out of him. And that's just really what happened. And then on Woodley's side, all three, at least the last 2 wins, Masvidal and Burns, are 2, knockouts. So, and that was always everyone's biggest like knock on Usman was like, well, he's a good wrestler and he's a dominant champion, but he's not a real finisher. And now with that, we get to this fight. I feel like it changes the whole landscape. Like I really do. Because the first fight, it was like a kickboxing match between 2 wrestlers. It was the weirdest fucking thing I've ever seen. I think this is going to be a lot more wrestling heavy than anybody is expecting it to be.
I think you're right with that analysis, and I'm interested to see who's going to be dominant there, because I think that Usman is going into this fight with all the advantages. Not only did he get the victory in the first fight, but since then he's had 3 fights. He's polished up his striking and then worked out those kinks in the octagon 3 times to Covington's inactiveness, just the one fight. He's fresher. Colby is definitely the second best welterweight in the UFC, I feel.
I agree with that as well.
I mean, and I think it's going to be a close fight, however it goes. I think Colby's best path to victory, though, is what you just said, is wrestling. I think he is a slightly better wrestler, and I think that he could win the fight that way.
You know what I think it's going to come down to is who has constantly been on the grind still. Because you know what ends up happening when guys like this, who are wrestlers, turn into strikers? They tend to slide a bit on the wrestling side of things. They tend to take a couple days off and maybe only do wrestling once a week instead of 3 times a week. You know what I mean?
I'd be interested in seeing if Usman has that. I don't think Colby's in that trap at all.
I don't think so either. But
Usman
could be because Usman has been focusing a lot on his striking. And
the
as he
results.
should, though. He literally has one of the best minds when it comes to striking in the game behind him.
Trevor Whitman.
Yeah, so like when you have someone like Whitman in your corner, like not only is he a master in the game plan side of things, but what he's able to just look at the other guys.
Also behind Rose Namajunas.
Yeah, he's literally the three main fights are all his guys. You got Gaethje, you got Rose, and you got Kamaru, and all 3 of them are freaking going to work with each other in this, Colorado, which is like this, it's a tough environment to go out there with the elevation and all. No one thinks about that kind of shit, man. Like
Outdoor training in the winter is
yeah,
fucking cold there.
and
It's not like here.
running at the Red Rocks and doing shit like, you know what I'm saying, doing the shit that out there is normal, but like Colby, I get it. You train out in Florida, and Florida's great.
He's at
but,
MMA Masters down there now, right?
Yeah. And Florida's great, but it's not going to give you that same grit. Like Usman's already had a gas tank for days, but I think the move to Colorado is something that a lot of people are like. Everyone knows that it's helped Kamaru, but I do think the location as well is a big part of the game that maybe some people are overlooking. I think.
Well, one thing I will definitely say for Covington is I do believe he stayed on the grind. He may not have been fighting much, but I believe he's been training his ass off. Because you can dislike his personality, but you can't deny his fighting skills and his work ethic. Like, that motherfucker puts in work. Like, remember his fight against, it was before the championship, his fight against Lawler.
Yeah.
Dude, the number of strikes that he fucking threw, I mean, good Lord. So I think, like I was saying, to wrap up my pick here, I think Usman is going in with the advantages on paper. And if I was betting money, I would put it on Usman. But something just keeps telling me Colby might pull this off with some wrestling.
It could happen. Could definitely happen.
So it's my upset pick is Colby. Although, I mean, like
I'm taking Kamaru, but I wouldn't be surprised.
He has all the advantages on him.
I wouldn't be surprised if Colby's able to go out there and do it, because the first fight was so darn close up to that sequence where Colby gets knocked down or whatever happened with his jaw, whether it was broken or whether
the ref
yeah.
stopped it. Yeah. And we don't really know. I mean, supposedly it was broken. Either
or
way.
nah, yeah, it doesn't matter. He had a swollen jaw.
I mean, that fight was neck and neck.
It was neck and neck up to that point, though, for sure.
So I think with a win, Usman will cement his legacy as the greatest since St. Pierre. He will have surpassed Woodley's reign in my mind, like as far as accomplishment.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, his streak of fight wins will be extended.
I think that's 15, right? It'll be 15.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, I think he's on track to possibly pass George St. Pierre if he keeps doing what he's doing.
Beating Colby Covington twice is no joke, man. That says a lot.
I just don't see anybody in the landscape that really can fuck with him either. Like, he's beat everybody.
Well, maybe they'll fast track Chimaev to some title shot with him or something.
But all of Chimaev's all his best parts of his game are also, like, in the same breath as Colby. All of Chimaev's best parts of his game are also Kamaru's strengths. Yeah. That's why I don't feel like everyone's like on this huge hype train of like, oh, he'll go in there and he'll beat Usman next. Watch. It's like, well, will he though? Because everything that Chimaev goes in there and tries to do is exactly what Usman's there to do. Mm-hmm. So
you're going with and still.
And still.
I'm going to go with and new, even though it's like I wouldn't put money on it. Like I said.
Yeah. I just feel like Kamaru is a generational talent.
He is amazing.
Yeah, he's
absolutely amazing.
He's fucking ridiculous. He is. That's just what it is, I think, at this point.
I agree, sir.
Well, we'll see on Saturday.
I think that wraps the show for today. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you're brand new to the podcast, you can catch us wherever your podcasts are distributed, from Amazon to Spotify to Google and Apple and everything in between. And we take all this information and some other stuff, we put it in one handy spot for people.
SWAT MMA.com, where you can head over there, buy a t-shirt, and support the podcast, motherfuckers.
Thanks, everybody. Peace.
Peace.